Welcome back, everybody.
Kinetic is a blockchain crypto investment firm based in Hong Kong and Puerto Rico. Founded in 2016, they were the first fund in Hong Kong and one of the earliest in Asia. With a portfolio of over 220 companies, they were seed investors in such projects as Ethereum, Parity and Polkadot, Solana, FTX and of course Handshake and Namebase. Founder Johan Chu is an active investor and supporter of the Handshake ecosystem. Over 100,000 domains, co-founder of DWeb Foundation, co-founder of HandyCon, and sponsor of the Handshake House at Miami Hack Week 2022.
All right, welcome back, everybody. Here we have again a representative from Skynet. Always happy to have them on. This is Daniel, and he's going to be talking about Skynet and Homescreen. So if you are involved in the website race/hackathon, implementing Homescreen, the category using Handshake and Skynet together, Homescreen is one of the requirements there. So here is a great opportunity to learn how to implement that into your website. But with no further ado, I'll let you take it away, Daniel.
All right, thanks, Fistful. I'll go ahead and share my screen here. So yeah, this talk is mostly going to be about decentralizing front ends, specifically with an emphasis on Skynet. But also bringing in some HNS and trying to keep it broad enough that we just talk about decentralized storage as a whole. I am Daniel Helm, developer evangelist at Skynet Labs. And in lieu of much of an introduction, I want to start off with a question, which is, should we decentralize front ends? So I work in decentralized storage day in and day out. And so I'm going to say emphatically yes. But maybe another way we can frame this question is to ask, are we really building permissionless systems if they're centralized at the point of entry? So we have all these great smart contracts, decentralized APIs, but if users are only interacting with them or controlling their digital assets by using front ends and websites that are hosted on Amazon, DigitalOcean, are we really building permissionless systems here? All right, but before we maybe get into the heart of it too much, I want to back up and just talk about decentralized storage. So if you're not familiar, it's a core piece of Web3 infrastructure, and we're storing things like files, web apps, NFTs, anything that is off-chain, anything that's not on-chain data. But we want to store it in a way that we don't have a single trusted central authority. And ideally, this setup is going to be trustless, permissionless, and censorship resistant. So at the end of the day, we're really looking at how do we, wrangle user data away from the likes of the Amazons, Facebooks, and Googles of the world. So there's a few players playing in this decentralized storage space. Skynet, obviously, but you also might be familiar with IPFS or Arweave. And anything I talk about in the kind of first half of this talk is going to actually be applicable to all of these. And then we'll get into some of the tooling that Skynet does that makes it a little bit unique. So the core idea when you're using decentralized storage is that when you upload a file and you place it in this storage system, it is going to be identifiable by this unique cryptographic ID. And so we call these things skylinks. In IPFS, they're called CIDs. But you can think of this like a fingerprint for this file. And it lets us know that the file that we're downloading has not been altered in any way from the file that was uploaded by the original creator and uploader of that file. And what this does is it lets us have these guarantees, right? We know that they didn't go in and change stuff later. We know that the portal or place that we're getting this data from is not lying to us about what that data is. And this can be a little abstract, so I'm going to just maybe show you what it looks like to interact with decentralized storage, because I think people find it a little bit intimidating, but it's not. So what it looks like to interact with Skynet, at least, is you go to a Skynet portal, like skynetpro.net or sciasky.net, And you can literally select a file. It will upload to Skynet, and we instantly get a URL back that is, that file hosted on Skynet. And you see here, we still have that kind of cryptographic identifier, but we can change the portal that we're accessing this from. And unfortunately, both of these are not going to be handshake domains, but traditional domain names. But I can put fileportal.org, which is a portal that's not run by Skynet Labs, but a community portal. And that file is still there, instantly available, and in a fully decentralized way. All right, we're here to talk about front ends, though. So let's look at something slightly more exciting. I can also click here and select the build folder of a React application that I've built. Upload that. And because this folder has an index.html file in it, when I open the Skylink here, it's going to act just like a fully deployed web app, but fully hosted on Skynet. And again, I could also just as easily access this through fileportal.org. Okay. And so, decentralized storage, you can see how quick it is to be interacting with it. I think it's a pretty exciting and easy thing to get going with as a developer. But let's kind of keep looking at some of the virtues of this. So I think some folks think like it's just a web app. Why go through all the hassle of worrying about the decentralized storage nature of it? And there's a few reasons, right? Developers might be liable for user actions on the websites and in the code that they're hosting. This is kind of still a regulatory gray area, but it's a place of concern for developers. We also have hosting providers that might not share the community ethos of the sites and apps that they're hosting. And so we worry about things like deplatforming and censorship. And another thing that on the user side we can be concerned about is that right now in the centralized web, users are totally unaware when a website changes or updates in the backend. They don't have control or knowledge of when these things are getting modified. And we'll look at some of the consequences of that in a bit. And lastly, protocol stakeholders are totally at the whim of the developer team. If the developer team decides they want to totally change how a website looks, feels, acts, anything else, we have to accept that. And we have to either accept that or figure out a different way to interact with our decentralized backends. So these aren't just hypotheticals. We see these playing out in the real world. There's real world consequences here. Last year in July, we saw Uniswap delist 100 tokens during a time of regulatory uncertainty. And after this, if you were a user that was using Uniswap for one of these tokens, you had to find an alternative way to be doing swaps. We see SushiSwap's Miso had a front-end attack where a malicious code was introduced into the front end, not into the smart contract. We've seen 1inch introduce geofencing to say, basically, if you're in the States, you have to sign this thing to say you're not in the States. And if you're not using a VPN, we are going to restrict you from using our web app. Compound had a bug where you basically couldn't redeem prizes, reward tokens that you were given because there was a bug in the smart contract. And they weren't able to fix it in the smart contract right away. And so instead, they just modified the front end. So anyone that wasn't using a decentralized version of the front end was locked out of clicking that button and interacting with that smart contract, but everyone else was still able to. And so it kind of was a very uneven playing field for that time. All right, and the last one that might be more near and dear to folks in the HNS ecosystem is we've seen DNS hijacking attacks, where here the entirety of PancakeSwap or Cream's website was just replaced with an alternate version when the DNS records got pointed to another location. Okay, so all that being said, Web3 needs decentralized front ends. I focus all these use cases on DeFi specifically just because there's money involved, so the stakes feel really high. But this applies to anything that we're talking about where we want to have this decentralized, permissionless access. So as a developer, it's probably going to be a pain. It's a new paradigm to figure out. And so there's reasons to ask, why not decentralize? Well, not all Web 2 patterns translate to Web 3. Sometimes we're seeing limited framework support in decentralized storage. And also lots of developers have performance concerns about using decentralized storage. To which I'm going to change the question there and say, well, why not decentralize with Skynet? A little bit of a shill here, but it is performant. It is user-controlled data that has cross-ecosystem and decentralized user identity that has a really incredible interoperability between applications. And so although Web 2 patterns might not translate one-to-one, you can actually build some really powerful tooling with new patterns that aren't available to developers in Web 2. In terms of limited framework support, Skynet has full support for Gatsby, React Router, Vue, and other dynamically routed client-side frameworks. And in terms of performance concerns, I think some of that's going to be out of the scope of this topic, but you'll see me interacting with both putting data onto Skynet and also just interacting with the Skynet web app in this talk, and take what you will from that. Our goal, though, is that any developer can build a Web3 application that anyone can use. It's really looking and focusing in on this. How do we make this something that's browser-based and that doesn't require a cryptocurrency to kind of interact with and use? Okay, so at this point, I hope that some of the developers or at least the web developers are thinking, okay, I've pushed changes to my website all the time. If my web app is immutable, how do I update it for users? Or if I do update it and then I have a new URL, how are users going to keep up to date with the latest version? And I'm going to give us a little story here where we have our friendly user, and she loves this website called Daily Builds. And Daily Builds is a website that every day has a new build. And so on Tuesday's build, she has access to it using this immutable Skylink over here. And she's happy and using Tuesday's build. But on Wednesday's build, it comes out and our user doesn't know what the Wednesday build Skylink is. And this is a problem. She doesn't know how to stay up to date with things. So in the Skynet ecosystem, we have a kind of primitive that is called a resolver Skylink. These things look just like Skylinks, but behave a little bit differently. And they let a developer team sign essentially a pointer to where they want this new Skylink to resolve. If you're familiar with IPFS, they have IPNS, and it's a little bit similar. But what that means is that this user can just have the one Skylink. They have this one resolver Skylink, and on Tuesday's build, it points to Tuesday. On Wednesday, our developer team has an automated build process that uploads Wednesday's build, and in one go also updates the resolver Skylink. And so our user is happy that they don't have to know any additional Skylinks here. Okay, happy unless they are a real human, in which case Skylinks are ugly, annoying, whatever else. And so in actuality, we're going to put a human readable name in front of this. And so this is where HNS, traditional DNS, or ENS can get in here. And we can point daily builds or dailybuilds.hns.skynetfree.net. This is a portal construction here, or dailybuilds.com. We can point the records here to our resolver Skylink. And so that way the user just has to know the one item. Okay, so that's all well and good. This is the state of most decentralized storage systems and how users usually interact with these things. But there's a question: is decentralized hosting enough? If we look back at some of those attacks that we saw, that's not going to really fix things for us. And so let's take a look. Thursday comes around, and Thursday's build is wild. It's got malware. The developers have gone totally rogue. Worst of all, dark mode has been removed from the application. Our user's not happy. But because it's an automated build process, the resolver Skylink updates to now point at this latest build. And our user, who's accessing it through daily builds, doesn't know any different, right? They don't know the original underlying immutable skylinks to Tuesdays and Wednesdays builds. So they have no way of reverting back to those things, even if they know that there's a problem for Thursday's build. And so this was an issue that we were seeing in how users were using decentralized storage. And so we developed a project called Homescreen. And Homescreen builds on Skynet. And what it does is it allows you to download full version of decentralized applications and save them to your personal cloud storage on Skynet. I think it's easier to see in action than it is to describe. So let's go ahead and pull that up. So I will open a new tab here, and I will go to Homescreen. I'm going to access it on Skynet Pro because it's a little bit faster. And sign out first. What I'll be presented with is the homepage here. And this is a web app fully living on Skynet. And I am able to log in with MySky, which is a part of the Skynet suite here. And I'm able to log in with a passphrase. This is, my seed phrase that lets me do all the kind of personal cloud uploading and updating on Skynet. And I'm instantly presented with some applications that are already in my home screen. And so I can access 1inch in a totally decentralized way that is living on Skynet, or any of the other applications that I have. Let's say I want to go back and add my React app to home screen. I'm able to paste that there, locate it, and click Add to Home Screen. And when I do this, the application is going to go and grab all those assets. It's going to grab the HTML, CSS, JavaScript, save a copy of that in my personal storage, and then make it available to me here. And for the developers there, this is not just data that is living in my browser. This application data here is also living on Skynet. So if I were to access this on another device, log out, log back in, all of this is still instantly available to me because the application data itself is also living on Skynet. And you can see how fast I'm able to update and interact with that. Okay, so that's not all we can do. When we created this application, we let it know about home screen. We did a little bit of extra work to make it home screen compatible. And what it allows us to do is come and click check for updates. And so now what home screen does is it looks at the resolver Skylink that I have saved and assigned to this application. It says, has this updated? Is there a newer version of this application? There is. And so I can click update. And now I'll go download that version. I'll get all the assets, the CSS, the JavaScript, the HTML, and save a full version of that client-side application here in my personal cloud storage. This time, for some reason, going slightly slower, but there we go. Okay, so now I'm accessing an even newer version of the 1inch front end. But if we have that scenario where, oh, damn, everything's gone wrong, I'm able to click here and click View Details, and at any time downgrade to the previous version or any version that I want. Click Save. And so on my home screen, I just have the experience of opening up my preferred version of the 1inch front end. Okay, so that's a little bit what it looks like to interact with home screen. You can also do, I don't even know if Skynet Labs is set up as an HNS name, but I think it should be. No, it's not. I know the DG Helm is, though. And, I'm able to use human readable names there as well. Okay. So that's what Skynet has been working a while on building and promoting is this way for users to make sure that they're always able to fork that code and have, user version guarantees about the front ends that they're accessing. In terms of what's next, you might have this kind of question like, oh, well, there's this interaction with the portal. That is the next piece that we are trying to make fully trustless by verifying all of that data that comes into the browser. If you caught David's talk earlier today, he talked about the kernel, and that is something we've been working on to kind of fill that gap so that data is fully verified and it can be multi-portal by default. If a portal lies to you, you don't have to know. The kernel will just jump to a different portal and download the data from there, and it all can happen right in the browser. If you're interested in integrating with Homescreen, it's pretty simple. The main steps are that you have to deploy an app to Skynet. You'll want to probably automate those deployments, and we have a deploy to Skynet GitHub action that can just do that every time you push to main or whatever. And then what you do is in your application, you have a kind of manifest file, and in that you just add in your resolver Skylink as a piece of metadata, and that's it. That is enough for Homescreen to know where to always look for the latest build that you are signing that, hey, I'm publishing this thing. So what you'll want to check out is our docs at docs.skynetlabs.com/integration/homescreen. If you want to see what it looks like in the GitHub repo, that is hello HandyCon, which I don't have up anymore. But let me pull it up just to kind of show a little bit of how simple modifications are on a basic React app. Basically, the gist of this is that you have a workflow file that you can copy paste, and it says that every time I push to main, I want to run this GitHub action, and I will upload the build directory, and I will also pass it a seed so that I'm able to sign those updates on the resolver Skylink. And that's really about it. I would love to talk to anyone about ideas that they have for the hackathon website build a race going on. We've got over $1,500 just in Siacoin prizes. We're doing prize pools, so even if you don't think you're going to have the best website, just build something, get it on Skynet, and you'll still get something out of it. And here's a bunch of resources. Skynetfree.net is a free portal that you can sign up on and have really good service and access to Skynet on. We've also got our developer guide. And most importantly, we've got our Discord where we have a ton of developers that are really generous with their time and knowledge and are happy to help out new folks into the ecosystem. So that's all I've got. I hope I left quite a bit of time for questions, and happy to talk more about decentralized storage.
All right, awesome. Thank you again for giving your time, talking a little bit more about this. We have one of our developers actually in the chat right now, Jordan. He's building HNS chat and would like to talk later, so definitely hit him up on the Discord, Jordan. We do have a couple questions here, if you can see those.
So yes and no. I think right now, so let me actually just talk a tiny bit about how Homescreen works, how Handshake and Skynet interact. I talked about these portals just briefly, and that's going to be where you're on the kind of the domain name you're using to request data from Skynet. And what we have set up there is we're using Handshake full nodes on every single portal server. And so you can try to access something like, skytransfer.hns, and then the portal name. It's not Skynet Portal, it's Skynet Pro. And so what that's going to do is on the portal side, it will go check the Handshake record, and it will actually look for a text record in the entry there. And so that text record is just pointing directly at a Skylink, and then the portal will know how to do that and use that. And so internally in the Skynet ecosystem, that's how we normally are using HNS. We do also have projects that have used using actually the TLD to set up records. And so I know that like Angry Mouse has set it up so that I'm able to resolve handshake names using Skynet in this sort of way. But I don't believe there's a way to do it in a fully decentralized way right now. I know that Namebase also, has set up for D-Links. They're doing this where they have a different record set up. So you can see all this kind of in the documentation, but I believe right now we are only supporting our implementation of HNS and HNS domains. I kind of wonder what would happen if I did something like that. I think that's still pulling our HNS there, but.
All right, so I hope that answered your question, and maybe that's something to work and build on in the future, making so this can be fully decentralized. It's all process. We got to start somewhere, though, for sure.
Yeah, and if you caught David's talk, we have exciting stuff where we'll be able to do HNS resolution in browser, and that's not something that we have set up in Homescreen, and so we would then have to do another trust setup with our portal who's running the HNS resolver there. So I think that is something with the kernel is going to be pretty easy to do and to add support for.
So there you go. Sometime in the near future, this is going to be fully decentralized. You just gotta be patient. And then let me see this one.
Okay, how does one know that the latest build is secure before updating? They don't. If they are going to update, they can, if it's an open source project, they can go and check the source. They could even build it themselves. But I think, or just check Twitter. But at the end of the day, yeah, you're not going to know that the latest version that you're using of anything ever is going to be good, right? Because the developers themselves could be the ones introducing malicious code. But the idea here is that you've always got that escape hatch, and that if it's something that's really high priority and that you're really paranoid about, if you know a version is good to go and you don't need to stay using the latest build because you're interacting with immutable smart contracts, you don't need to worry about that. And you can just kind of keep using the version that you like to use.
So actually, on top of that, I kind of was wondering, so what if you know that the latest version is the one with some malicious type of stuff in it? Do you just go and talk to someone who might have the most recent or the latest, what's the word? The one before, the version before that messed up version? Do you just kind of talk to them and then manually add it there, since you can't necessarily add it because that one that you're adding is the one that's malicious?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so what you can do there is your friend could send you, a Skylink of one that isn't bad. Our system does not have a history of all changes of these mutable records. Old changes drop off. And so we can always go in and add the old Skylink and save that to our home screen. It's already saved. And we could share that with friends. And I'm really interested in, hopefully as this picks up more traction on the user side, I would love for GitHub repos, when a version release is made, people put in this is the immutable Skylink for this thing, which, in GitHub, someone could go and then alter as well. But it would be one way of kind of publishing that record of where the old versions live on Skynet.
Gotcha. Cool. One from Matthew.
Yes, good question. So the question here is okay, someone's paying for this, right? And yes, the answer is they are. When on the back end here, Skynet is kind of like a layer 2, you can think of it, on top of the SIA network. And the SIA network is blockchain storage that connects renters of storage with hosts of storage. And the renters pay the hosts in SIA coin. And on Skynet, when you have a portal, that portal is acting like a renter on the Sia network. And so it is paying for the storage here to those hosts. We have different ways of handling this. The main idea is that web apps are really cheap, so we don't need to worry about it too much. But SiaSky.net is our portal that we kicked off Skynet with, and it was free to use anonymously. You never had to sign up or anything. And believe it or not, a lot of abuse came our way, and we've been struggling for a couple of months dealing with serving providers taking us down, domain name providers taking us down. And so what we've ended up doing is setting up systems where you can pay. On skynetpro.net, you can pay for up to 20 terabytes of storage for like $5 a month, I think, or maybe it's a little bit more. And then we have a free tier where you still have to sign up, but it lets us at least say, like, all right, we know someone's email address if they're abusing our service. And so if you want to run your own Skynet portal, you're going to be paying for storage on the Sia network and Sia coins. But otherwise, it is up to the portal and their users to figure out the economic incentive there for the portal to provide that service and to provide the pinning on the Sia network. I think that answers the question.
And then I think this is kind of already answered that, right?
I will update my browser. Yes, I think so. Yeah, end users are not paying directly to the Sia network. The portals are, and the portals and the end users have to kind of figure out how to make that work. So,
okay, and then another one from the same user.
Yeah, I think I don't see why not. It seems like those are great ideas. I think our development effort and kind of maybe our ethos for building as fast as we can is often how do we make it easiest on users? And if a huge majority of the web is using Chrome and Firefox, like how do we get to them, and how do we get them using Web3 as quick as possible? And so super interested in external integration of these other tools, like utilizing Skynet and the primitives we've built there and the web apps, but it's not something that we've focused on as a team for our development efforts.
All right, awesome.
That being said, reach out and I'd love to talk about it, because in some ways, a lot of this tech is pretty simple once all the abstractions have been made. So,
yeah, great. And if you did notice on the air meet, this one is scheduled to go until 7:35, but that was kind of a mistake. We shortened this one down a little bit. So if there's any other questions or save rounds, just let us know. But if not, then we're gonna cut it here. We've been talking for about 30 minutes, and I think everybody's learned a little bit about Homescreen, which I was the goal of this anyway. So I'm just gonna wait a minute, see if we get anything else, and if not, we'll call it. But with this time, I guess I'll just shill the hackathon again. I really cannot shill this enough. We want content on handshake names. We want we were partnered with Skynet for this kind of website race as well. So, and one of the requirements is using Homescreen, like I mentioned before in the beginning of this talk. So if you want to learn more about that, just check the feed at the top right of the air meet, and you'll see I posted a Discord and a Twitter link that you guys can share around. There's money to be made, like Daniel said. The category with Handshake and Skynet is a $1,500 pool of Sia coin. So if you were the only one to submit a site for that category, guess what? You get $1,500 worth of Sia coin and 2K worth of HNS because you're first place because you're the only one. So there's no reason not to build, for sure. So definitely go check that out, share it around. It only helps everyone to put content on the DWeb. But I'm not seeing any other questions. Anything else from you, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, just a second to what you're saying. I mean, we want to build. I mean, we really want to make sure people are, I know it's a domain protocol, but we need to keep building. We need to cooperate with, Saya. Thank you, Daniel, for sharing. Show the world that there's more and more websites and content that's quality and valuable in the Handshake ecosystem is really, really important. So we'll also, maybe we should make a hashtag fistful or something for the hackathon, or is there one? Maybe.
Yeah, no, I wish I would have done some more marketing. That is definitely my bad. I kind of dropped the ball on marketing for this
We can start
whole
one now
thing.
or something. Maybe I could follow it. We could all try to just reshare. But I think even in the last panel, I think choosing which domain, I saw some people on Twitter already registering names like SLDs or TLDs.
Great.
So I think, but there's even extra incentives, right? That some of these staked TLD people are using. If you use a name, one of their names, they'll also throw in extra money. I think we'll have to make some kind of a summary too. But yeah, it's just really, really important. I'm really happy we have such amazing people in the community developing and building. It's very important. So any ways that I personally can help, or of course Fistful is super helpful, or people in the network can help you, don't be shy to let us know.
Yeah, definitely reach out on the Discord. And I also just don't want to forget to say thanks to you, Mike, and Fistful. HandyCon's been great of what I've been able to catch so far. And I don't know. I love the Handshake community and what y'all are building. So it's exciting to be on the
Hey, we love y'all right back. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, these collaborations, it's always been nice with Saya. So thanks guys for and Daniel too for everything. So then I think we got networking too. Maybe people could also go in one of those lounges. I'm not sure if Daniel has time, but he'll be in Discord too. But maybe find other people. I'll try to spend some time. I think we got a little bit of a gap for some networking before our final session, right, Fistful?
Yeah, so our Namebase, Namecheap kind of talk, that's going to be happening at 7:50 PST. And so we got a little bit more, 30, 40-ish minutes right now. So yeah, go network, go talk, and just make the most out of HandyCon that you can right now. And then we'll see you for our final talk for HandyCon.
Yeah, so Namecheap will be here, and Johnny Wu, everybody's favorite community manager. He's awesome. So he'll be, I think he was on a panel yesterday, but he'll get some time up on stage. So it'll be an epic way to wrap up HandyCon on day 3. But definitely stick around for the networking, and then we'll see you. What time would that be? 30 minutes?
Yeah. About 40-ish minutes.
40 minutes. So you guys got a good. I know last year's HandyCon people wanted more networking, so hopefully people have had more time this year for the networking, and we'll be all hanging out. So thanks so much, everybody.
All right, see you guys there.
Okay.
Kinetic is a blockchain crypto investment firm based in Hong Kong and Puerto Rico. Founded in 2016, they were the first fund in Hong Kong and one of the earliest in Asia. With a portfolio of over 220 companies, they were seed investors in such projects as Ethereum, Parity and Polkadot, Solana, FTX and of course Handshake and Namebase. Founder Johan Chu is an active investor and supporter of the Handshake ecosystem. Over 100,000 domains, co-founder of DWeb Foundation, co-founder of HandyCon, and sponsor of the Handshake House at Miami Hack Week 2022.